Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I am super excited to talk to this guy. He is an energy healer, but call it with a twist. He's experienced so much and has helped so many people, literally hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm guessing that if you're going through something and you need a change or you just need to feel better again, he could help you out with that. Scott Mangis joins us today. Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well this morning. Thank you.
Great to have you on. And we talked a couple of minutes before we got on here. And aside from being an energy worker, you are a Zen monk. So I kind of think I know what that is, but fill us in.
Okay. The short story is I moved to Japan and Tokyo in 2009 to work over there, and been meditating for many years before that. Then I got introduced to a Zen master, and within about 2 years, I left my job, and I'm a Zen monk under him in his temple, and I'm standing in front of train stations, chanting and holding a bowl and taking donations.
Wow!
So I went from a $250,000 a year salary to 6 years of standing in front of train stations and chanting and collecting donations.
Before you continue, I'm going to say, why?
Yeah. Well, the simple answer is I was raised with this idea that I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, go get a job, get something stable, get something to support my family. And what was going on was I got that job, but I was miserable because my inner world didn't match my outer world. And what I mean by that is the outer world is the pressure that society, the labeling, the conditioning that it heaps on me. And the inner world was I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted something. I was looking for a challenge. I was looking for, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And so that's the struggle. That's the angst that we get into, is not following our intuition or our heart, and leading with our head.
Yeah. You know what? You brought me back to a song that kind of echoes that, and I hear it and it resonates with me. Do you remember the song by the Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime?
Yes.
And it's like, this is not my beautiful wife. This is not my beautiful car. Well, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And it says a lot, in terms of what you're saying. It's like you think that, and I'm in the same situation in many regards, perfect this, perfect that, and it really wasn't what it seemed to be. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Yeah, there are the three perennial questions, who am I, how did I get here, and why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, I guess I realized that I was not what was printed on my business card.
Yeah. And you realize that, wait a minute, I got to be true to myself.
Exactly.
Interesting. So that experience in Japan, where did that lead you to where you are now? Or how did that lead you?
Okay. I left work, and I became, I mixed my time between being at the temple and being home with my youngest daughter, who's 9 now. So pretty much a stay-home father, and then, several days a week, and spending nights at the temple for retreats. And it was just this really simple lifestyle that I fell into in Japan. And I had paid into an education fund while I was in the Marine Corps, so I wanted to use that. So I went back, and that's when I went back to school to get a PhD. And I was interested in healing at the time. So I married all this stuff up: Zen philosophy, energetic work, with PhD research, and spent a couple of years doing that. And that's when I came to my understanding of healing, and healing work, energy work, is a little bit different than the mainstream.
I'm intrigued and can't wait to hear about that, because I already, hearing your scientific background mixed in with the metaphysical and the energy healing is an interesting combination. Sometimes you'll meet somebody who's a doctor and they also do energy healing. So what's your philosophy? How do you see it differently?
Well, energy healing has been around forever. And, so the mystics have talked about this forever, the sages. And Western world is kind of caught up, and, X-rays are energy healing. Ultrasound is energy healing. So there's no shortage of it. It's just, what are you willing to accept as energy healing? Right. It pushes the boundaries of, into that woo-woo, or what we call subtle energy, Subtle meaning we can't measure it. It's happening below our measurement capabilities. So there are plenty of examples out there. You think about a person and they call you the next day. The phone rings and you know who it is on the other end. The mother who knows her child is in peril intuitively. This is all energy work as well. And what I came to realize was that I'm not influencing you, you're influencing you. Everything you need exists within you. The energy I provide is I'm merely conduit from higher source energy through me to you for you to put it to work through your intention to solve whatever's going on. And hundreds and hundreds of sessions of this clinical research that I did was, and I guess I shouldn't use the term clinical because I'm not a clinician, but this is just practice I did in looking at, I guess, my feelings about what was going on. I realized that I'm not healing anybody. They have to heal themselves. And when you get right into the Zen non-duality of it, there's no separation between me and the person. There's no separation between me and the cancer. And then it came to the point where I realized I am the cancer cell itself, because everything is in this non-dualistic, no separation, only one energy. Whatever experience I'm having, that's my experience in the moment.
Interesting. Wow. And I know we're going a little deep, but
Yeah,
I'm grabbing it, and I totally and my journey in the past year has completely opened my eyes up to the power of energy. And I was dealing with metaphysical stuff in 2009. Helped launch a worldwide metaphysical website with practitioners. It was huge. And I think it wasn't mine, but I worked with somebody, and I think it was too early. People weren't ready for that then. And just seeing what energy can do, and especially the game changer is what we're doing now because of COVID, Zoom videos and being disconnected but connected electronically, showing that we can throw energy back and forth, makes it more real. Like, and I totally agree with you. Your intuition, the energy, who's going to call. Sometimes that's a coincidence, but when you do a Reiki session or something, through a Zoom video, and the other person has results or can feel it, you can't deny it. It's there.
Yeah, exactly. And I did quite a few sessions with people that would, we'd arrange a time, they would lay down on their couch or on their bed, and I would send them a theta brainwave entrainment track. So you listen to that for about 15 minutes before the scheduled time to start, and for 30 minutes while the session is taking place. And theta brings you down into that dream state of, where anything is possible, and relaxes you so you kind of get out of your head. And that's where the connection takes place. And the feedback I got was really powerful.
I think you're right about that. And I don't want to make this about me or anything, but just to illustrate what you're saying, when I had my first remote Reiki session, I was in a very comfortable spot. Literally, I had a beer. I'm like, I'm going to just chill. And I felt the benefits and the information the practitioner pulled from me validated everything. There's no way she could have known those things afterwards. Yeah. But then I had a Reiki session 2 weeks ago. It was my birthday. I was at a restaurant. Somebody had a friend of a friend and did it outside in the parking lot. I didn't feel anything because I wasn't in that spot that you're talking about.
Yeah, there's intention plays a huge role in this.
Yes.
And unfortunately, our mind that created, the world that we live in, that we're trying to get out of, whatever level of suffering that might be, is also the mind that's going to come in and judge whether or not the Reiki session was working.
Right.
And so in this respect, it's best whatever thoughts come up, just to relegate those to the dustbin and move on, because you're not having the experience anymore when you're thinking about it.
Let me think about that. You're not having an experience anymore when you're thinking about it. That makes very clear sense.
Yeah. Consider you have a really frightening dream, and you wake up in the morning and you spend your day noodling on what the meaning of that is. What's the narrative there? Well, the dream is over. The experience is finished. All you're doing now is putting labels and you're putting definitions on things, and those are all related to your beliefs and conditioning. And the beliefs and conditioning, I'm sure you've heard this before, most of that stuff is in place by around age 5, 6, 7. So I'm flying around in my airplane on autopilot on a map I created when I was 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I subscribe to that 1 bazillion %. And I even had hypnotherapy, and my childhood wasn't that bad, but when you connect the dots, I, for the first time ever, had hypnotherapy virtually, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago. And that's exactly, I take me back to my childhood. That's where we're going right now. Knew where I wanted to, go, but it's startling, surprising what you just said, because we're on autopilot. Our subconscious is operating from back then. But what you said before, I always say this phrase to myself: all I need is within me now.
Yeah.
Because you can fix yourself or heal yourself or move yourself forward or whatever it might be. It's inside. You got to find it, though.
I use the analogy often that, picture you have this beautiful view outside of the sun, or you'd like to have a view of the sun, but you have Rembrandt paint a picture of the sun on your window. And as beautiful as that might be, I still have to scrape off that picture. I have to scrape off the paint so I can see the real sun. Or I'm looking at myself in the mirror, going to shave my face, and it's covered in gunk, and I'm not seeing who I am. That's the conditioning. Those are the beliefs that have been heaped upon us by society.
Yep.
And so it's tough to get out of those. That's where meditation, or what we call in Japan Zazen, comes into play.
Can we talk about that a little bit? And we could probably go for hours talking about meditation and things that you've experienced, but the way you meditate, and I have to believe you're very proficient at it, given your background in Japan and being a Zen monk. For the rest of us, what are your suggestions? I think a lot of us, myself included, struggle with getting into that zone, blocking everything out, making it productive.
Well, therein lies some of the misconceptions about, well, let me say it this way: the misconceptions between Japanese, what we call Zazen at the temple, and Western meditation. In the West, we meditate for a reason. I'm angry, or I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not talking well with my children, and I'm going to meditate, and that's going to help me. So you can see in that sense that I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it because. Whenever I'm using the word because, I know I'm talking from my ego mind. Now, this doesn't mean that desiring to be more patient with my children is a bad thing. My ego is driving me to do that. That's wonderful. But at the same time, my ego is going to help me search, but it can't help me find. Because at the moment that I find that oneness, that means the death of an ego. So as we muddle our way down these spiritual paths and we get more involved, eventually the ego starts chattering and say, this teacher, it's taken too long. I'm paying too much. It's not working fast enough. And there come the doubts. And so then I jump ship and I go to another teacher. And I know this from my experience over the years, because I've been doing this for quite a while. And eventually I become a highly evolved ego. I can talk about all kinds of woo-woo stuff in the universe and everything, but I still haven't found myself yet.
Have you?
My ego would say yes.
Yeah. What do you feel inside?
Well, it's a misbelief that everything becomes so peaceful all the time. We still have anger. We still have frustration. I mean, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, if we want to use a definition. And part of that human experience is frustration and anger and love and sadness. And think about walking around all day, every day in this beautiful, peaceful state where nothing surprises you, nothing happens. It's just, that'd probably be its own torturous, boring prison.
Maybe.
So we're here.
You know what? I'm going to give it a try, though.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that one, just because.
Yeah. So the idea is that, yeah, I still go into anger. I still go into frustration, but I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm the witness and I see what's going on, and I can go in, but I come out a lot faster now,
Hmm.
but I still
Okay.
have emotions, and you know, I think it's a misbelief that sitting on a cushion will stop you from thinking, because three of the human functions, right? I have a heart and I pump blood, it pumps blood. I have lungs that process oxygen, and I have a brain that thinks. And we don't really spend too much time thinking about our heartbeat unless those beats are getting too close together, you know.
Right, right.
And then we talk more about breathing these days, you know, in this day and age. But as far as thinking, we think that's real. We think that's useful. I can't stop thinking. I can't stop breathing. I can't stop my heart, because anytime I do that, it means what? I'm no longer existing. I'm dead. So the idea that I want to shut off my brain is a misconception. What I want to do is I want to see the thoughts come up and I want to let them go. And then they come up and then I let them go. So in Zazen, we're sitting on a cushion in a certain posture. Thoughts come up. I'm aware that I'm thinking. I check my posture, take a breath, let it go, wash, rinse, repeat for hours and hours and hours. And this is when the magic happens. This is the key, because your knees hurt so bad, your back hurts so bad, the fly that's buzzing around, the heat, the cold. Eventually, all that stuff just stops. You're exhausted. You know, the average day at our temple was 9 to 10 hours on a cushion. So that's when the beauty happens, when you're just exhausted and you keep playing that game and throwing away, then poof, you know, then there's that moment.
Do you have many of those moments, or they're kind of few and far?
Yeah, I hesitate to answer that because it's subjective to my mind, but I would say that my world has changed drastically in the last 25 years, and especially in the last 10. And what I mean by that is I no longer attract the same kind of people into my life that I used to attract. I sleep better. I interact with my child better, my wife better. Everything is just easier.
Hmm.
And
there's the magic.
yeah. So here's a little story for you. I call this one the yogurt sneeze. And in Tokyo, you don't have couches. I had some big bean bags and pillows, and I'd lean up against the wall in the living room. And my 2-year-old would sit on my lap, straddling me, facing me, and I would feed her yogurt. It's got chopped up raisins and chopped up nuts in it, and give her a big scoop. And so one more, this is the joy of my life kind of morning. And I give her a big scoop, and I watch her eyes kind of close and her head go back. And I thought, she's going to sneeze. So the first thought was, you know, take evasive action. And I could have thrown my hands up, or I could have moved her away or whatever. But I had that ability to come up with a better response. And my response was, this is going to be interesting. And I watched her, you know, building up pressure. And finally she cut loose and sneezed, and she blew yogurt and nuts and raisins all over my face on the wall behind me. And we started laughing. She started laughing. I started laughing. My wife came out of the kitchen and she said, we're going to need a towel. But it created one of the best memories I have. And because I had the ability to respond to the input rather than to react to the input, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And do you think in another life, maybe years before that, you would have been like, God, man, what a mess. It's on the wall. Might have to repaint. Look at this.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you loud and clear.
So I think there are those kinds of moments where I can pick, you know, I can respond to the input or to the stimulus, and maybe I won't even respond at all. Maybe I'll just
know that what you did made a difference now in how you reacted.
Yeah.
I'll share something real quick with you about, and this is like in the last 2 weeks, meditation wise. I don't feel I can effectively. Lots going on lately. Just felt drained. I get up in the morning the one day and I was just like, oh, I'm tired. Something's up, man. I'm gonna go back to sleep. Laid back, like 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't go to sleep. I laid there for like 45 minutes. I think life made me meditate, forced me to the edge. Like, this is it, man. You're stopping. I got up and I felt so refreshed. I had like the best day ever.
Isn't that
and
nice?
and it wasn't sleep. It definitely wasn't sleep. I just zoned out, but I wasn't zoned in sleeping. And I really truly think that you finally got it. You were meditating.
Yeah, the idea of some of the science that gets involved here is changing our brainwave states. And we're talking in beta right now, and beta is great for problem solving and logic, but it also is a brainwave state of stress and anger and frustration. And what you were likely experiencing was called alpha, which is the daydream state. So you're not quite asleep, but you're no longer in that feeling the stress and feeling the pressures and things like that. It's very expansive. Then if you were to drop into sleep and you start dreaming, that's theta. When you get past theta, when you're no longer dreaming, but you're asleep, your deepest state is delta. And this is when your body's repairing itself. And for the person that doesn't meditate, that's stuck in the world and very much reacting to the world around them, it's hard for them to go into the sleep cycle and cycle through those different brainwave states throughout the night. And I think it's about a 90-minute pattern. Somebody probably knows more. I'm sure there are people who know a lot more about it than I do. But so the idea is, your meditation practice will create better brainwave states for sleeping, which in turn kind of makes you want to do more of it because you feel better.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go deep, but I do want to say, when you go deep, you make it with all your experience, certifications, credentials, everything you've experienced. It's clear.
Oh, good.
It's clear.
Thank you.
And it's felt. Very interesting. And honestly, Scott, very refreshing.
Good. I'm glad.
What do you offer to those of us that need to find some peace, need to, kind of move life along? How do they reach you? How does it work with you?
Well, first, I like to say that everything I do is donation based or free. Never charged a fee for a session, and somewhere north of 600 or 700 sessions now.
Wow.
And the idea is that I am healing me during these sessions. So that's my approach, is that I'm meeting you, for instance, for a reason. This is not random. This is supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have something that you'd like to clear, in the collective sense, I also have that to clear. If we kind of take the Jungian collective unconscious thing and extrapolate that a little bit to think we're all suffering. So nobody gets out of prison till we're all out of prison. So I see it, if somebody approaches me and says, I have cancer, I have this, or I have that, that's an opportunity for me to heal myself as well. And
wow.
So the sessions are really done while you're asleep. That's usually what happens. It's almost always remote. And so if you're in Texas and I'm in North Carolina, we'll pick a time where you'll be asleep and I'll connect with you. And the idea is that you start setting your intention of what you'd like to solve, what's troubling you. And the funny thing about energy work is, I have this recurring back pain or neck pain, and I started doing energy work with Scott, and next thing you know, I dumped my job. And then a couple of weeks later, my back pain went away. So it's not a linear thing.
Wow. Yeah. So that could have been leading to this, but you enabled them to realize that was causing this somehow through energy.
Yeah. So, so there's a lot of physiology involved, but I think it just gets overly complicated. So just know there's I don't even ask people what's going on anymore, because it doesn't matter to me, because I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to push it. I'm going to send energy to them with the intention that they use it for their highest purpose. And it's so much easier that way.
And I've often heard too, and we're just about out of time. I could go on for hours with you. There's lots to talk about, but I've often heard that the energy goes where it needs to go. It's like you don't even need to know what is troubling somebody or what they want to work on.
Exactly. This idea, again, going back to the mind, and the mind is a great tool, looking for problems, offering solutions, spending hours on problems that may never even happen. It does a wonderful job of that.
I say that all the time, and it's been proven in studies and research that 90% of the stuff that we worry about, marinate over, never takes place, never happens. You're wasting your time. The 10%, you shouldn't even worry about the 10. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. So getting down to the most fundamental thing in Zen is accept everything as it is. This does away with duality of right and wrong and good and bad. And people choke on that. There were a lot of arguments at the temple about that sort of thing. But, the hard fact is, in duality, you can't have a Gandhi without a Hitler. They're opposite sides of the same coin.
I want to like spend hours talking. This is just because you're speaking my language as well. And I'm sure lots of others. And I have friends, just what you said, at the temple, I have friends. And whenever I say it is what it is, and they're like, yeah, why do you got to say that? Why, come on, because it is what it is. There's some things you can't change. They are what they are. And you need to just, navigate around it. How do we reach you? How do we find you, Scott?
Okay, you can go to thesetsuna.com. That's SETSUNA. And Setsuna means, it's a Zen term for split second. And so that's what life is. It's a succession of these Setsunas, 1/70th of a second.
Amazing.
Yeah. Wow. So thesetsuna.com.
Excellent. Looking forward to talking again, Scott. You are, again, refreshing, informative, clear, relatable. Just fantastic talking and meeting you.
Thank you. It was great.
Yeah. And can I say, let's have a Zen day? Would that make sense?
Yeah. Let's, it does make sense.
Okay. All right.
Accept everything as it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And
I want to leave you with one thing.
Please.
Whenever you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
I will think about
because you're asking me about this enlightenment, this aha state. And if I go spend a week with my family, I go spend a week doing something that I don't want to do, I'll quickly learn how unenlightened I am by watching what comes up in my mind.
Point taken. All right, Scott, we'll catch up again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.